All right, welcome to Hits and Misses. I'm your host Tumi, and this is my best friend Eric.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Eric P. Football here. Your boy, he just got here fresh off a championship loss. So let's prepare for it.
All right, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We got to talk about CMC, Kyron Williams. We got to talk about Devontae Adams. We got to talk about Tyreek Hill. All of that and more coming up.
And lack there.
All right, man. Championship weekend, week 17. Give me the something like what happened, bro. Give me the I want to do the championship check. Let's do the chip check. What's up?
Man, I just came off a loss, dog. It was extremely close. Imagine how I feel where my opponent has Gerald Everett, Patrick Mahomes. All I have is Rashee Rice. We're literally between each other at the end of this within 4 points. Rashee Rice, if he catches that ball and he doesn't go down on third and so ever like 1 yard and they go for it on fourth down, if he happens to gain more yards as a wide receiver, he gains more points relative to the quarterback, I potentially win this championship. That is how I just lost. I feel not the best.
Not the best. I can understand it.
Yeah.
This is a tough week. So welcoming everybody. There's a lot of people who are in Eric's spot. Hopefully you be in my spot. So I'm actually gonna win. I'm gonna win this one. One of them. I was in a ton of leagues this year, and I got wiped out of like a lot of them. Last week really did me in. Amari Cooper, Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs. I was facing all of them last week. Wish I faced them this week, but and so I got kicked out of a ton of leagues. But the big league I still got a ton of players left. I'm down by 20, but I have Jordan Love, Jay Jettas, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft. I got a lot of guys left, and he has nobody else. So I should find some woods. Should be okay. I should be okay, man. But it's just this one. These set of games, it's kind of boring. Would you say?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. I'm gonna try my best not to be biased, given that I am super fresh off a loss within like the past 10 minutes here. But yes, it could have been better. I would have thoroughly enjoyed it. All things considered.
Bro. All right, so hey, the show's called Hits and Misses, guys. What we do is we go through everything that happened today, and really just from the lens of was it a hit, was it a miss? And so we're just gonna get into it. We're gonna just pick out players who were hits, pick out players who were misses. I always give Eric the option. We go positive first, negative first. Eric, pick a player. What do you want to do?
People know how I'm feeling. I'm feeling pretty daggone bad. So we're gonna start with the misses. And I should know a couple of them. We got to go with this one here. I'm not too salty about it, but I would have preferred a better performance out of Saquon Barkley. We played in a PPR, man. Man had 8.8 points, 12 for 39. Come on, my man. I knew it was a tough matchup, but you got to start your best players and everything. So that's what I did here. Many times he's actually performed better than expected against a tough matchup, but consider last week, but this is just how it played out. So Saquon Barkley, he was a definite miss for you this week.
I feel like, since we always talk about this, the team that I think I'm going to win in is very similar to the team that you're in the championship game in our big time league. And I had Saquon in that one too. Same thing. Everyone was asking me, and I feel bad about it. I'm a start your studs type of dude. I'm not going to bench players who are I'm just not gonna bench my highest caliber players because I'm not gonna have Saquon go off on my bench. I'm just not gonna live that life.
Yeah, and how could you sleep?
Yeah, that's the thing. I can honestly sleep with Zamir White going off on my bench. I cannot sleep with Saquon Barkley going off on my bench, starting somebody else over him. And clearly Zamir White was the better choice. I think he got 15 plus PPR points versus Saquon. But Saquon, man, he booted this one pass that he would have they said he would have scored at. He at least is going to get you 30 plus on this one catch alone.
Whew, that hurts to hear.
Yep. Yeah,
oh boy.
They were trying to get into field goal range. That game was surprisingly competitive, but that's the thing. Everything pointed to Saquon having a bad day except for his pedigree, because the matchup is just second best against the run, shutting just annihilating the running back position, and they did it again. So the Rams, we just got to give them credit. Not as much for next week unless you're in a week 18 situation, but really moving forward, Like the Rams, they really came to play this year. I definitely did not give them that much credit.
Oh, yeah. As far as their turnaround, people are referring to Matthew Stafford. They're saying how much people have disrespected the fact that he's relatively fresh off of being a Super Bowl quarterback. And I have to go ahead and admit, he has impressed. I mean, to go ahead and give him some shine, I actually picked up DeMarcus Robinson to go ahead and plug in for a lot of injuries for our championship run for this weekend. He actually performed relatively well, to be honest. So
yeah, and he's been on like a hot streak like crazy. DeMarcus Robinson. He didn't score today, did he?
Did not score, but did fumble. Let me go ahead and say it all. Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
keep it real. Keep it real.
Get off of that real quick.
Like I said, I'm negative.
The steam coming through the mic.
Yeah. Let me calm down.
There are some massive hits though, and I'm going to start with one of the hits, man. Because I mean, this guy, he went from being, I mean, obviously very good, but really up and down all season. But towards the end of the season, turning it the hell on, and he is a clear NFL MVP frontrunner. Lamar Jackson, bro. Like, come on. Like, this is what we do fantasy for. For the big time players to step up in championship weekend. That's what the hell we're talking about, Lamar. Like, honestly, I was one of those people who was thinking, honestly, I picked the Dolphins to win. I don't feel good about that. But I actually I thought the Ravens were going to have a down game because a lot of times when they get really, really hyped up for a game like they did against San Francisco, in their history, especially Lamar, they've just performed badly in the next week. And so even though Miami was really banged up, I just thought that it was going to be a much closer affair. Wrong. Wrong.
Incredible. Like, I missed some of that game. I think came back. They were up 40-something to what remaining points the Dolphins still had. I could not believe it. I was like, my goodness, there are women and children watching this. What in the world is going on? Wow. That was what they did to these boys. I mean, hey, MVP.
It's not even a question. I mean, I hope it's not a question now, right?
No,
like, pretty solid today. But, I mean, they kind of wiped their ass with him, like, a few days ago. Like, it's just, we can't forget that. Like, Lamar is that dude right now.
For sure. For sure.
And just real quick, he had 47.3 points, 18 of 21. He missed 3 passes. Come on. 18 of 21 for 321 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. 5. 6 rushes for 35 yards. I mean, yeah, it's not like MVP. Like, there's literally no discussion, especially with Tyreek Hill and CMC falling apart. Brock Purdy just doodling all over himself on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, throwing 4 picks and 18 picks to Kyle Hamilton. Like, it's Lamar, no question. All right, so that's my hit. What do you want to do next, man?
I'll go ahead and pick a hit and keep it on the quarterbacks. Kyler Murray. Let me give him his shine. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had him. Even though I lost, I'll go ahead and pay respects. Pay some homage here. My man, let me not even get on the stats. The game wasn't even that great for him. In the first half, they did relatively nothing. Second half, this man turns it around. In PPR, he gets you 29.7 points, 25 for 31, 232 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Kyler Murray can skirt a little bit too. He ran 6 rushes for 35 yards. He ran 5 carries for 24 yards. He is very heavily involved. Trey McBride did his thing as well. I wish they'd have connected on the touchdown, but that game was pretty much what I expected to get the boon of my points from. And I was very, very scared to not really even be competitive, but Kyler Murray turning it on when I needed them to. Unbelievable performance for that man.
He killed it, man. He killed it. And it's that team that they face seems unserious to me. They seem like an unserious team when it comes to the defensive side of the football. I don't know, I get it. Gannon was going to get really amped up to play his former team. I refuse to believe there's not anything to be done on the defensive side of the ball to improve with the personnel they have. I can't believe it. I can't believe that you're going to let Kyler Murray just dice you up. And we knew this was going to happen because the one thing I've been telling people is all right, whenever somebody's targeting the Washington Commanders, you have to play the quarterback against them because they're just by far the worst matchup in the league. And that's been wrong. By far the worst matchup in the league has been Philly. They've been worse than the community on a historically terrible pace. They are awful. They are awful. They are awful. They are awful in the secondary. And I don't see the world where they're turning this around. I really want to believe in it. They have the talent, but I don't know what else they can do to improve their defensive play. Because that's really the issue right now.
And it's funny, During this time, I was very mobile on this day. I was listening to on the radio for this particular game. Didn't they produce an interception like in the first half and return that 99 yards? It would lead me to believe while listening to it, man, the Eagles have really turned around on defense. They were really about to like show what they can go ahead and do. Listening to this game further on the radio, I was amongst Eagles fans, and you could just see they were like, "Yo, it's happening again." Yep. They are seething right now.
Yeah, man. And I mean, to get that, and that's the worst part is like you get torn up in the air. I get it. You get torn up by Kyler Murray for 232, which is not bad, honestly. But 3 touchdowns in the air is not good. It's really like the next guy I was going to talk about is James Conner, man. 26 carries, 128, 1 touchdown in the air, 1 touchdown on the ground. And just this guy is the definition of a bully when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. He bullied them. He just bullied them all over the place. I was telling people, like, James Conner was my start of the week. And if you guys follow Fantasy Football Strategist, Eric P. Football on TikTok, I put out my start of the week part of Player Profiler starts. And I was just like, they've been awful against the running back over the last few weeks. And a lot of people were thinking earlier in the season when they were like the best defense against the run. They are completely falling apart there. They're awful against the pass. They're awful against the run. They're awful against everything. And they just got manhandled by Arizona, who had, I mean, they got their 4th win today. I'm just clearly very disgusted with that Eagles performance. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. All right, man. All right, what you got next, man? Let's get negative.
I'll go ahead and take it back to the negatives, of course, because that's how I'm feeling on this day. Tyreek Hill, number 1 offensive player. You would have thought that he would have really, really overproduced today, but this was really, really shy of what you expected him in the championship week. In PPR, he was able to go ahead and put up 14.6, just 76 reception yards on 6 catches. Like, no Jalen Waddle. They got beat. Everyone sees the score that I referred to when we were talking about Lamar. Like, what happened? Where were you? Like, my goodness, that was you completely missed if you played Tyreek Hill here. And you most likely were still making it because you had Tyreek to get you there in the first place. So he super missed.
And that's the thing. He super missed because his expectation is through the roof. Like, his expectation is 20. Like, his expectation is like a QB. A high-end QB2, like low-end QB1 type production on a week-to-week.
Especially in PPR.
Yes. It's like it's easy points. It's easy 20. And to not get anywhere close to that definitely killed some matchups today because no matter what thing you play for, the projection was putting Tyreek Hill 19 plus, no matter what. Easy. And that just ain't going to cut it in the championship. Hopefully you survive that, but I think that was a pretty – I wouldn't say it was a massive miss. He at least didn't he didn't murder you like some of these other people did, but definitely your expectations were not met.
Yeah, his gap given his expectations are what really, really slapped you because you probably really assumed like 20 points. I mean, in a game with no Jalen Waddle, off of catches alone in PPR, he should have had like 15. I'm assuming. Like, what in the world?
Really, like, we're gonna get in some of these hits because some of the targets this week. 21 targets for one player. We're gonna talk about. Like 17, like there are some people who got the targets. That's what I needed to see. I needed to see that level of targeting for Tyreek Hill, and I just didn't see it. Exactly. I was going to talk about Alvin Kamara next, but really, I mean, he got hurt. I get it. The matchup wasn't great, but he actually was he was 6.9 at halftime. I can't kill you for it. And I mean, I'm going to really quickly touch on him. Just CMC. That was kind of a similar thing to Tyreek Hill.
Very much.
Where 13.1 in PPR. He gave you 64 yards rushing, 4-5 receiving for 27 yards, but that was all in the first half. It's just he left with a calf strain, and they didn't really need him, so they just kind of let him rest the rest of the game. And that was all that stuff he had was at the half. So he was on pace to do another Christian McCaffrey solid, 20-plus point game. He just didn't get it because he was out of the game. You can't really do anything about that. I personally was very happy about that because in my championship in the other league, I was facing somebody who had CMC. The projection went down rather dramatically when they were projecting him to get 22 points and he didn't hit it. But
that's the killer, man. That's the killer.
Those injuries, I mean, that injury in particular really, really killed you. Obviously, Kamara, he killed you. But I'm saying all this stuff. I'm not even talking about him. The player that I don't want to talk about, man. Oh, my God. You know what? I'm going to say I was going to talk about Stephon Diggs. We're going to talk about Stephon Diggs a little later because he continues to be poop. But
stay less.
The other guy, man, it's sad now. Derrick Henry,
Whoo.
4.2 in PPR, 4.2 in standard because he didn't catch any passes. He caught nothing. 12 carries for 42 yards. He did significantly better than he did the last time he played the Texans, but that is not saying much.
Exactly.
He used to do naughty things to the Texans in his career.
Yes.
He used to do some things to the Texans. He used to just abuse them boys down in Houston. And they have flipped the script with D'Amico
Oh, yeah.
Ryan. And it honestly is it's one of those things. It's like it's sad to see because like you don't want to see the King you don't want to see King go out like this. Honestly, like this is not how you want to see him go out. It feels like it's a what's it called, like Game of Thrones. Like they're just beheading the main characters right ahead, like in front of you. Like this is not what you want to see from Derrick Henry. But this is definitely a guy I don't have Derrick Henry on not a one of my teams just because I was so concerned about his age and that he's literally at that age where running backs just fall off a cliff. And he clearly fell off a cliff in the worst way this year.
Very true. I actually was looking at Derrick Henry because I'm not going against him either, but just the way that he produced, it's against the narrative. The way he just performed against this team, you would have thought he would have been absolutely riled up to run all over them like he has in the past, as you alluded to it. It was sad to see. And Tyjae Spears, I didn't even consider playing him because I was like, Derrick Henry's going to want everything he can get against this team. He just wants to eat all day against these guys, and it just didn't happen. And it's fresh in his memory what they just did to him. So the tide has been turned. It's a new day.
It's a new day. I don't know. There's no way he's going to be on the Titans next year. I think that Spears, if there's any way you can get him in Dynasty, do what you got to do and get him. I think there's like some significant upside there, even if it's for like a 1 to 2 year trial run. In fantasy, he's going to light it up. I just think that moving forward, I don't know how good they're going to be. So you just take it with a grain of salt, but also take his game scripts with a grain of salt because then he's going to catch a million passes. So I think that's definitely somebody to invest in. All right.
Sure.
Let's go. I mean, we're going to keep going like a couple more minutes on these hits and misses, man. There's some massive hits. There's some massive misses. What do you want to get into next?
You know, let me talk about a good old hit here. I always bring up Joey Flack. That man was killing. The Browns, I'm going to talk about the Browns a little later, real talk. But my man Joey Flack in PPR, doesn't even matter. He's a quarterback, sorry. 29.7 points, my man. Man, 19 for 29, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Yeah. He is getting it done consistently. And where was he like a month and a half ago? He was sitting where I am pretty much. He was chilling. This dude came up out of nowhere and is balling. If you picked up Joey Flack, you made yourself into the playoffs. He's a set it and forget it. This was not even seen. Unbelievable performance by Joey Flack. I gotta like the quarterbacks unexpectedly have really turned it up, man.
Yeah, him is special. I mean, him in particular, like,
oh yes,
the fact that since he's been a starter, he's thrown 8 interceptions and no one cares. Says all you need to know about his fantasy production. They're chucking it so much in this game. I think they only threw it like, was it 29 times? Yeah, by far the lowest amount he's thrown it against a Jets team who unfortunately just kind of looks. I don't like saying that people give up. I get it, but it kind of looks like David Njoku is still running wide open in the middle of your secondary. I can't understand that if you really care. That's a tough one for me. So that's why it just feels like I don't know what we're doing, man. I don't know what's happening with the Jets defense. I almost feel like a lot of it was more about that than it was Joe Flacco, but you got to give credit to him. And I like another one of the podcast hosts up here were saying, if you put the Browns on a neutral field with Kansas City, who do you pick? I'm clearly picking the Browns to win. And honestly, I'm picking the Browns if they are an Arrowhead to go in there and win because Joe Flacco don't care. Like, that's the scariest quarterback in the playoffs. It's a dude who just, hey, I don't care. I'm just throwing it. Like, I'm going to just chuck it. I'm going to chuck it into coverage. Let my guys go get it. Like, I don't care. I just got those just steal ones, and I'm going to throw it up for my dudes. Like, this is a scary team, especially, didn't even mention the defense yet. I mean,
exactly. Exactly. I completely agree. The Browns, you don't want to see them.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, there's some massive hits we got to talk about. I'm going to really quickly touch on one guy. I don't feel like we're going to talk about him too much.
Cool.
I just don't feel like it, honestly. I don't feel like talking about it too much, but I got to mention Davante Adams really came back to life. 13 for 21. 21 targets. That's insanity for 126 and 2 touchdowns against my beloved Colts, but it wasn't enough because we got that W. So I was happy to see that, but man, he was chomping them up for a little bit.
I'll go ahead and do one. I'll go ahead and do another hit. Kyren Williams. This guy, next year when we do the redraft, this is a name that no one saw coming. Look at this kind of performance. He's going to be fresh on everybody's mind. In PPR, 30.1, 20 carries. He had 87 yards. How many touchdowns in a championship week? 3 touchdowns. That's what you need. The team believes in this man. To go ahead and get this kind of volume as consistently throughout the years he has out of nowhere when no one saw this guy coming, you absolutely know the Rams have a job for him next year. Invest.
Because that's the thing, man, with Kyren. Like, if he didn't go on IR, it's like, I love Puka. It's no question Kyren Williams is like the fantasy MVP if he wasn't on IR. Like, no question.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I'd probably even give it to him over Mostert, too, because I just feel like there's been so much swirling with the backfield in Miami whenever Achan comes about, even though Mostert's still getting a lot more of the work. When Kyren Williams is on that damn field, it is Kyren Williams' backfield. No one else. Just there's no room to breathe. The only time there was a little bit of room to breathe was when he first came off of IR and Royce Freeman randomly had a couple good games. Not anymore. This is the Kyren Williams show. And this is just, it's just like, we obviously see running backs come out of nowhere all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I also don't want to buy too much into it because we've seen this from like James Robinson. We've seen this from like we remember Myles Gaskin. Mike Davis had a great year. Like, we've seen this from different players, but based on just the style of player he is, and also based on his pedigree coming out of college. I remember watching him at Notre Dame. He was good then. He just ran a really slow 40. He's a very dynamic player. He runs so damn hard. He clearly has great vision and great explosiveness, even though he's not super fast. Like, yeah, I mean, to me, I'm going to just say he's the de facto fantasy MVP if he was healthy the full season, but it's hard to give it to anybody but like Raheem Mostert and maybe Puka Nacua because they've been healthy for most of the year. But it's a tight race between those three for me. Like Puka, Kyren, and Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, Tyreek. I mean, Tyreek is also
I'm talking about players who will like come out of nowhere. Like, clearly there's like
unexpectedly. I was going to say.
Yep.
Let me go to the misses. One more miss, because this one I gave a lot of influence to was James Cook in a game where, you really thought that he would produce in some capacity, be given how he had the 20 carries the week before. They just didn't get it going. And since this coordinator's come under the Bills, all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, he's not doing anything. It's like you didn't see this coming at all. Like, he was another person who, though isn't like a super duper star every single week, he didn't even meet his expectation of like, say, 10 points. So it was really a sad performance in a championship week from James Cook when you just thought the volume would be there. They didn't even play anybody that was too tough. Now, I know they played a very good defense in the Patriots, but I'm like, you're a pass catching running back more so than anybody else too. So you should also be involved in that capacity, but it just didn't turn out that way in this game. And I know the quarterback had a bad game, but he was able to run for some touchdowns and go ahead and turn his day up. So that was really at the expense at James Cook. And that was tough to see.
I mean, that whole team is like, they could turn it on anytime. It's one of those things that's like, I hear you also on it being a miss, but it's also unfortunately like kind of closer to the Saquon one where we shouldn't have been too surprised by it. We're just kind of hoping we didn't see it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Like, it's a tough one. He got 16 carries. It's just, you get 16 carries, like, they tried to give you the ball. You know what I mean? Like, 60 carries, 48 yards, not great. The receptions is the problem. Yes. One reception over his last 2 weeks. We can't do, I mean, James Cook without receptions is, I don't know what we're doing there.
A no-go.
Like, he is not a plotter. You know what I mean? Like,
and he was doing so well. It's just like the consistency getting hit this hard out of nowhere. That kind of momentum to a full stop, it's ugly. That's why it's jarring with me, and it's a little bit of my bias.
My bias too. I've definitely been very high on James Cook, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. All right, so I mean, we kind of started talking about it, but I wanted to look kind of a little bit at like the fantasy year in review. There's been And again, guys, I know there's people who are playing in the week 18 and stuff. We're gonna have a show next week. We're gonna have the show through the playoffs, so we're gonna continue to talk about football. But for most people, their season is ending today, with week 17. And so I wanted to kind of look at some of the biggest themes from fantasy this year. If you look in the rundown, Eric, I basically wanted us to each pick one. The one that I was going to start with, man, was there's a lot of options here. I'm going to start with the one of the biggest themes this year that I think, and it's been kind of overstated, but I just want to make sure I say it, is zero RB strategy worked out this year in a major ass way. Like, it was a big success. Like, James Conner, Rashad White, outside of today, was a consistent top like 5 player after like the first couple weeks of the season, like murdering it. And to the point where he was in everyone's rankings as a top 5 running back for like the last 10 weeks or so. Isaiah Pacheco, Alvin Kamara, again, disregarding like the last 2 weeks, but if you got him in your middle rounds because of the suspension, he really delivered for you. Same thing you could say with like a JT. Brees, he wasn't performing, but he really came on late. And you could have some sort of mix of them. James Cook, when he was starting to go off, you can have a mix of these players. Obviously, you pick up waiver guys like Kyron, Ford, etc. Devin Achane off the waivers. But if you went zero RB, you're probably in a better place than the people who drafted Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard. Jesus, that's me. Tony Pollard, Bijan, some of those people super early. Like, you really had a nice stable of running backs if you completely waited on the position and drafted like CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill. Some people had both of them, which is wild to me. Like, if you drafted those level of play, like AJ Brown, like, you could have drafted those level of awesome players and still got an amazing stable of running backs if you went zero RB this year. I would say, not that it continues and goes every year like this, but I would say that the zero RB strategy this year was a massive success.
Gotta agree. I'd say for me overall, what we have here, I'm going to go with the quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, as far as their value, like we're pretty rich in quarterbacks coming into this league, but meshing our 2 points together, look what the injuries actually did, and you still have a lot of top performers. So I think a lot of people, when it comes to fantasy football, you've always thought that the quarterback is something that you really have to invest in. I think the actual condition of the league right now has so many options that going forward, you can really start to wait on a quarterback. Not everybody's going to be Lamar, but now we've got CJ Stroud added to the mix, Burrow. You've got great players who get hurt, and they're people who are backups who can still come up here and produce. So I think the quarterback more is lending a lot of their, tend to overbearing in fantasy football. It's starting to normalize a little bit, I would go ahead and say, given how many are actually in the league right now who can perform to a top level.
Yeah, we've been talking about Joey Flacco the last couple minutes. Like, he came out of nowhere. Josh Dobbs had his run where he was lighting it up. Like, and so we can talk in 2 different ways. In fantasy, you didn't have to draft like Kirk Cousins in a lot of leagues, and he was the number 1 quarterback for a long stretch of time before he got hurt. Anthony Richardson getting him like he was murdering it. CJ Stroud was completely not drafted in a ton of redraft leagues.
Exactly.
Like, there were a lot of quarterbacks you could have gotten in fantasy late. And one of the things I'm just never a fan of, and it just re-emphasizes this to me in fantasy, I'm just not a guy who's taking quarterback within my first 2 to 3 rounds. I just can't do it. Like, I know a lot of people who took like Patrick Mahomes in the first round. I think that's just so stupid.
Yeah, those people are converted. I think this season has converted a lot of people who used to do things of that nature.
100%. We had some really rough conversions this year, but hopefully round 1 business is just lay that to rest. That is done. Like, do not do it unless it is a super flex league. Just get over it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
And here's why that makes sense. Just look at all the injuries and just why you should invest in having a well-balanced team. Going into this week, look at the wide receivers who did make it. If you had Cortland Sutton, a level of consistency wasn't there. Jalen Waddle wasn't there. When you got up, Raheem Mostert, you were anticipating him, was not there. And that's another player that we considered is waiver wire gold that you didn't see coming. You might have hit on that throughout the entire season, and in championship week, you had nowhere to go. Maintaining a balanced team and not overemphasizing into one position is how you win fantasy football.
Yep. You could have drafted so many high-level players in the first few rounds. And then obviously, like you said, they get hurt.
Yes.
At least if you went with the route of getting like 2 quarterbacks late, like Dak late, where he was going super late, could have gotten Dak and like a lot of people got Dak and Anthony Richardson. Worked out for you this year if you did that.
For sure.
So, but the one thing I will say just really quick before we move on to the next segment, where we're basically just going to be critiquing my takes, like the actual quarterback market too. I'm never a proponent of people not getting their money. So just make sure we're not taking this out of context. I could argue the actual quarterback position in the NFL has now been overvalued.
Oh.
Like you like the money, the dollars that these guys are now paid. I get it. It's been 1 year. It's the sample size that is real. This is a unique year, so this may end up just being an outlier where we see the Jake Brownings, the Joe Flaccos, all these guys come up and play at a decently high level to get their teams potentially into the playoffs. But I mean, they like some of these guys are just getting paid probably way too much. Like obviously, Daniel Jones contract looks like trash. Russell Wilson contract looks like trash. Aaron Rodgers contract looks like trash. Like Kyler Murray contract looks like trash. Matthew Stafford, until like probably the last few weeks, has looked like trash. Massive deals for players who have not been at that. Like Lamar Jackson, he was going to get the next big dollar, so that kind of makes sense. But I would not be surprised because we see this every year, and everyone was dumping all over the running back position, saying that they're completely overvalued. We literally have an example this year, so maybe we'll see if it continues, of a lot of backup quarterbacks coming in and playing at a high level. Will we continue to pay these guys at this exorbitant level, or will there be kind of like a scaling back? Like, for instance, a lot of people are talking about Baker. Without what he did today, there's no way I'm paying him anywhere close to what that deal was for Daniel Jones, because I think that was a mistake, obviously, anyway. Like, you're getting – I'm chunking these deals down if I'm looking for – unless it depends on who the quarterback is. I feel like there's really only like 4 to 5 guys where I'm like, all right, you get like top money. But I'm just not giving top money to like a relatively mediocre starter anymore. I don't think that they have not separated themselves enough from the backup pack to deserve that level up in pay, in my personal opinion.
I do think there has been some impact for sure, given how things have taken place this season. This season would have to be an outlier if there is no impact to that market, because simply what they have produced out there on the field. I mean, it is what it is. And these guys are paid to be a certain standard deviation above everybody else. And you're seeing guys coming off the couch out of nowhere, they're getting it done. So that's just not what it is. So it's a conversation to be had. And the running back market are the people who should go ahead and have it. They do have an argument now, given how things have transpired.
I agree with you 100%. Like the Saquons of the world, the Josh Jacobs of the world, like we're seeing similar. It's not the same, so don't take us out of context. But a similar situation happened this year. So, like you said, we'll see if it continues. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning. I'm sorry, guys. So, if you guys have like some matchups that you guys are dealing with, and the Sunday Night Football game is going to be coming up in a few minutes, let us know in like the comments. What do you need to win tonight? Like I said at the beginning, I'm down like 20 points, but I got like Jordan Love, Jay Jettas, Tucker Kraft, and Jaden Reed to get me that 20. So I should be good because he doesn't have anybody else to win this championship. But like, put in the comments what you need. We'll let you know if it's realistic or not, and we'll give you like an honest opinion. Be like, nah, you're kind of asked out, or hey, good shot to win. Okay, so make sure you throw that in the comments. But this next section, so I want you to look at the rundown, Eric.
Yes, sir.
This is a list of takes, so it's the one that says optional. Tumi hit or miss preseason takes. Guys, I love to just self-critique, and I want to know, like, I want to be able to speak to like some of my really awesome and really garbage takes this year. And Eric, I know you're my friend. Pick some of the bad ones if you can, as well as some of the good ones. And I just want to pick like 2 or 3. So go ahead and take a shot.
Okay. This one's fairly interesting. Give this team some shine. Jahan being better than Scary Terry.
Why? That's
An uppercut to start us off.
Right neck. God, that was just a terrible take. Like, there was so much preseason hype, and this is a lesson for last year. Like, I had Terry higher than Jahan the entire offseason. Within the last few weeks of the season during training camp, I bought in so much to the hype where they're saying he's getting like all the targets in like training camp. He has such a great connection with Sam Howell. And I mean, he's a great prospect. I mean, he was a first-round pick the year before, had 7 touchdowns. He was a great player. And I just thought, like, you know what? F it. Jahan, better than Terry. And for like a random amount of games, it actually looked okay, but it went away so quickly. Terry McLaurin is just a dog. That touchdown he had today, where he just snatched that thing from that boy in San Fran. And, like, he is just a beast. He is one of the most tragic cases for a player that I've seen. Like, he's gonna go down as just one of those amazing players who's never gonna win a championship because he is great. He needs to be on a great team, and it's just unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's gonna happen for him. And I'm sorry, Terry. I should never have doubted you. I hope Jahan's gonna get better over time, but I mean, it's not happening soon. It's not happening to Terry.
That narrative was certainly out there about Jahan Dotson being like this great wide receiver everybody should anticipate this year. So I definitely wanted to go there as it jogged my memory. I was like, oh, I recall that narrative. I'll go here. This one might be a bit jarring as well, but that is a great tangent to go off of it.
Thank you.
Kelsey in the first round.
And
that will hook.
It's just God. All right. Get a positive one next. Jesus. Okay. So yes, I said you should take Kelsey in the first round. And the logic was the difference in honestly, it wasn't even really the delta. It was the fact that Travis Kelsey, to me, was still going to end up as an elite level top 3 tight end. And honestly, he's not super far away from that, but he didn't belong in the first round. Where you're like CeeDee Lamb was the big one that like he should have clearly been ranked over him. Tyreek Hill, people were skipping out on Tyreek Hill to get Travis Kelsey. CMC, when there was this random story about him like splitting time with Elijah Mitchell, he started to fall a little bit. Like Travis Kelsey just didn't belong in that territory. You never want to make a case, and I'm not going to make this case next year, where look at all these other tight ends who get injured all the time. Travis Kelsey is super healthy. He's 34. Like he's 34 in a really rough, brutal sport. He's going to get injured. And it's just like you can't always depend on that, even if the targets are there. Like he's just an older player, and he's just not going to perform the same level. Hopefully, he turns it up for the playoffs, but he's just old. You got to kind of bank on. Sometimes an old player gets old. That kind of is what it is.
But the positive tangent out of that is I think this year we have been relieved of thinking that there are no other tight ends to consider who will be like basically good TE ones throughout the entire season. Laporta, Hawkinson, McBride. Yep. Everyone thought that, what was it? Waller on the Giants. He might go ahead and turn it up next year. You have a lot of people that you can consider who should be targeted a lot higher than you would expect for the tight end position. So I don't think that Travis Kelsey is pretty much seen on a tier by himself anymore. I think you got a lot of other teams that are incorporating the tight end to a point where they can rival his kind of production over some time, as what we've seen throughout this year. Laporta this year has been incredible. Then you look at Hawkinson and McBride and other tight ends who've been able to step it up. I think that position, we've actually got some answers to it going forward in fantasy football.
I agree. All right, give me one more before we get into our top 5. Please just make it positive. Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Just make something I got right. So I can talk about, because there's a lot of stuff I got right here. You find us some good stuff to not.
I'm going super right with Eckler outside of top 3 RB. Most people think he's pretty much set it and forget it, and you pretty much called that one on the nail.
Yeah, that one wasn't even super surprising, honestly. I got that right, but I probably didn't get it right for the right reasons. Like the reason should have been age, and honestly, for me, it was the fact that they had bolstered their receiver depth so much, which clearly didn't matter. The fact that Quentin Johnson was the number 1 today. And the fact that, it was really the offensive scheme. They just didn't target the running backs like that. That kind of held a little bit more true. He just was not getting the targets like he used to. But he's never just been good on the ground. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's never he's not giving you consistent 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Like, the parallel between CMC and Eckler was like, CMC is going to give you over a G every year on the ground, period, just on yards and just yards in the air. Eckler scores crazy touchdowns, gets crazy receptions, but may not produce the yardage. And that's, to me, just not that it felt fluky, but it's like it's hard for me to consistently see that being incredibly effective. So that's why prior to the year, I was completely like Eckler was outside of my top 7 rather easily. And every time I went live and said that, people just were basically screaming like, he's an idiot. He's what do they say? He's a casual. That's what
that is their favorite word. I have seen that a lot.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, and there's some other ones. We're going to talk more about the offseason, about like some of the takes I got. My worst one probably would be the Tony Pollard one. I thought he was going to be a top 2 RB. Wrong. Rashad White thought he was going to be a PPR monster. That looked pretty good. I know the player profile, we've done really well with that one overall. A lot of them up here. ETN, I was wrong. Man, I said ETN was going to be a bust.
I was about to pick that, and then I read it fully. I was like, "Oh no. Let me keep it moving."
Oh my god! All right, man. So really quick before we get into our top 5, just a really quick preview. In this game, I think that there's a lot of incredibly interesting players. I'm a big fan of Jaden Reed. I don't know if the injuries came out. I'm not sure if Dontavion Wicks is going to play, but I do think like Watson is out. Reed is going to get a lot more focus again. I think that he's a great play in PPR. Honestly, even in standard, I just think that he scores. I think Jordan Love has a great game. This is a must-win game for both teams. So this is going to be a knockout, drag-out fight in Minnesota on the turf. And I do think it could be decently high scoring for both teams. I think obviously the star of the show is Jay Jettas, especially because your boy got suspended for going out to the coin flip. Jair Alexander, he got suspended for illegally announcing himself as a team captain. Like that's so funny. But he's gonna miss. Like this is the matchup. That's the guy who gives Jay Jettas problems, and he's not there. So I do think that I'm expecting really great offense from a lot of these players right now.
This one is interesting from a fantasy football perspective for people who might have had Jordan Addison because he's questionable and didn't really practice that much throughout the week. And you might have considered going with KJ Osborne. So the fact that he's going to play this game, you have a whole lot of uncertainty if you're in a position where you need Jordan Addison to play well, or if you actually started KJ Osborne thinking that Jordan Addison might not be able to play up to par. So this is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out for those two players going into this particular game. But Jay Jettis, as you said, that's where most of the bank is going for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And last, before we get out of here, I want to touch because we barely ever touch on the players who just finished wrapping up. There's some guys I just want to quickly touch on as some hits and misses. Isaiah Pacheco went the hell off. 130 yards on 18 carries, 7 receptions for 35 and a touchdown. I don't even know how many points he got, but he got a lot. And then a massive failure would be Jamar Chase. He was 3 of 7 for 41 yards and about 5 fights. So he got into about like 5 fights with the Kansas City defense. And I think they lost that game. So it was just a bad game. And I think Joe Mixon, not efficient. He just gets you the carries, gets you the catches, got a touchdown. The damn Steelers ran all over those Seahawks, boy. They're still running on them right now. Like they just ran all over them cats. Those are some of the main ones. All right, man. So we end every show doing our top 5. So these are the top 5 NFL teams. And around this time last week, we had made our game predictions. And that's where we said, like, if we were going to pick the 49ers or the Ravens, because those were basically the top 2 teams that we thought. And I got it right.
Yeah, you did. Man, I got to give it to you. You got it right. I was watching that game. I was like, wow. Boy, he really nailed that one. That's for sure.
Kyle Hamilton, people didn't know, like, he's a problem, bro.
Oh, they know now. They know now. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a great game. Great game.
But like, all right, so let's do the top 5. I feel like I know who the number 1 is, but who's your top 5? Or if you want me to go, I can go either way.
Oh, it's New Year's. I'll go ahead and let you go ahead and knock it out.
All right. Let me start because I never start. I always depend on you to start, and then I make it up as we go. All right. So for me, clearly number 1 is the Ravens. They beat down the 49ers, and they just whooped some Dolphin ass today. They beat them down in a very disrespectful way. And they honestly don't have they're not even like a fully healthy team. It's Lamar and that defense and a bunch of dudes just stepping up. That means Zay Flowers is a high pedigree. Isaiah Likely incredibly athletic. But that's not Mark Andrews. They don't have like a ton of elite receivers. Like they're just making it happen. And Lamar did it with his arm, not even with his legs. So that's just, if that defense is playing like that, Lamar's playing like that, they will win the Super Bowl. It's just about them doing that consistently.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's 1 for me, and I'll kind of rattle through the rest. So it's 49ers for me next. Cowboys right over the Lions. And man, that ineligible player call is so ridiculous. I've seen so many memes of the refs and Cowboys jerseys. It was the worst. It's an egregious call where there should honestly be a penalty happening for those referees.
Man, the roller coaster of emotion that must have been happening at that game. I mean, for myself watching it, I was yelling and I was by myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm not a Lions fan, but that's you just imagine like what if they did that to your team? Like that's just terrible. And like because
Absolutely.
Jared Goff, a lot of people were comparing Jared Goff to Patrick Mahomes, where Patrick Mahomes was like, oh, like screaming and cussing, trying to get at the ref, and Jared
Yeah.
Goff very calmly said, "I don't know, I'm not trying to get fined, but Dan Skipper did not report him as eligible. Taylor Decker did. That's all I got to say, and he will get fined for that." But I mean, it's the truth. Like even in the replay, they were trying to say something where it looks like I didn't see Taylor Decker report. I was like, I see Taylor Decker walking up to a ref right now. What are we talking about? Like, what are we doing?
That was one of those times where I was just like, am I in the like Twilight Zone? And like, am I in the reality I think I'm experiencing? Like, what the hell am I looking at? He's right there. That's why I was like, all right, what's going on? It was bizarre, to say the least.
It was bizarre, but I will say, like, I do still think the Cowboys are better, so that's why I have them rated higher. Like, I think that they met 10 times. The Cowboys will come out on top of that, like, series of games, even if they weren't supposed to lose this last one. All right, so let's recap. So Ravens, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions, and then the Bills. The Bills have been doing it ugly the last 2 weeks, but wins are wins. They have 4 straight wins. And I got dumped on so hard when I said this before they beat the Chiefs, before they beat the Cowboys, before they beat the Chargers and the Patriots. I was like, the Bills are the team that can go on a run right now and potentially cause some wreck in the playoffs. Just doodled all over my take. Everyone was just laughing so hard. They've gone 4-0 those last 4 weeks. They are, and they're not even playing good football for real. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
They're a problem. They have the talent. Like Stephon Diggs, I don't think that he's amazing. That was one of the takes I had this year too. I was like, I don't know if he's even really like a top 8 receiver for real, but he could turn it on in the playoffs at any moment. Davis has done that at any moment. He did that last week. Like they got the talent to go crazy. I mean, we're talking about James Cook. Do we think that James Cook is just going to be complete garbage moving forward? Like, no. Like they're also not facing like ridiculous, hellacious run defenses like that either. Likely. Like I'm really liking that top 5. And then clearly outside of the top 5 for me are the Eagles, Dolphins. The Browns, we just haven't talked about them, but they're in there. I'm not sure where to put them. I had them at 8, and then the Chiefs are at 9. I didn't have a 10th. But that's kind of my top 5. So just to recap real quick, Ravens, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions, Bills.
Yeah. I'm going to be very different because I've been very impressed by this team.
Okay.
Number 1, of course, I'm going to go with the Ravens. Number 2 is going to be the 49ers. Number 3, because of what you said in their explosiveness and you never know how they're going to win the game, I want to say the Bills just because I think people are sleeping on their potential and their defense went ballistic as well today. So that said, my number 4 is going to surprise you. I respect the Browns at number 4.
Let's go.
The Browns at number 4, man. I'm going to say that. They have been playing incredibly well. Like, I got to put the Joey Flacco with what I've been seeing. I'm going to put him at number 4. The dude has been doing it. And number 5, I will go ahead and still say the Cowboys because that defense, when I look at the Lions defense, I'm still going to roll with the Cowboys defense over there. And I still think they are a very good offensive output team. Similar to the Lions, I think they can do it in more places than the Cowboys. But altogether, I think the Cowboys are collectively better team. So
that's I very much respect putting the Browns in the top 5. Just because, like we said, I'm trying to think of the places where I would put if the Browns were going on the road to these teams. Like I'm just looking at this top 9 list I have. Browns at the Ravens, I expect the Ravens to win. Browns at 49ers, I expect the 49ers to win. Browns at the Cowboys, I expect to win. If it was at the Browns, it'd be a different story. Now, but this is where it gets dicey. Browns at the Lions, I could see Joe Flacco I could see him going crazy up there in Detroit and Ford Field. Browns at the Bills, I feel like I could easily see that happen. I can see the Browns like stomp the Bills for no reason.
There's so many game scripts because I don't even think Del Pitt is out there for the Browns right now. But then they got Myles Garrett out there. Myles Garrett goes off on that game. That's a game changer right there. You're not telling me that there's somebody out there that could go ahead and hold that man down. And that's the Browns defense. We've seen what Joey Flacco has been doing. Who got answers for Njoku? Njoku been looking like a dude that's not Njoku. He doesn't even look like the guy who's Njoku. Everybody's seen this in the first couple of weeks. I would have said Njoku when I was talking about how we have new tight ends for the new tight end landscape. I have to put Njoku in there with what he's been doing with these past couple of weeks. Like he's been different, real talk. So Amari Cooper didn't play. That team is dynamic, and they don't even have Nick Chubb. Imagine if he was on this team going forward next year. The Browns, man, be careful.
That's the thing. Like it's old school. It's boring, but man, great old line, great defense. That thing will do something for you. And if you got a quarterback who can protect the ball, honestly, that part doesn't even matter to them for real. Like I said, since Joe Flacco's been starting, he's thrown 8 interceptions. I think he probably leads the league in interceptions since he's been starting quarterback. But
Zappy played today.
Huh?
Zappy played today.
Zappy played today. Howell played today. Who are rivaling him, but like Flacco be chucking it too to the other team. Like I mean, he had that one pick that went right to the defensive end, and he ran it for like pick 6 against the Jets. But clearly that didn't matter because I mean, Flacco that's the thing about him. He just got it. Yeah, he just got that steel in his veins. Like he don't care, bro. Like I just threw a pick. I don't care about it. I'm gonna fall asleep on the sideline. I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna go on the field again. I'm gonna throw another pass to Njoku. He's gonna take it to the house, or I'm gonna throw something to the floor. He's gonna take it to the house. And that's the thing. Like he didn't like Elijah Moore caught a touchdown, got injured, had to go to the hospital. Like Amari Cooper wasn't there, and they were beating them down so badly against a good defense, who was like a defense who was like crushing quarterbacks in fantasy.
Exactly. Like, and if you don't think they were driven for that game, come on. And they did that devastation to them. The Browns, man, real talk.
I feel you. All right, so just give me the top 5 recap, just to make sure this is for clipping, guys. I want to make sure it's easy to clip.
Oh,
so let me give my top. You go ahead, give your top 5.
Oh, I got you. I got Ravens, 49ers. I hit the Browns. Then I said the Bills, and I finished up with the Cowboys.
All right. And for me, I have the Ravens, 49ers, Cowboys, Lions, and Bills. All right, man. Week 17, guys. Appreciate everyone who hopped in here. Make sure you guys give us a follow, especially on TikTok. I'm on like Twitter or X, but I need to get more active with it. But I'm out there, FF Strategist. On TikTok, that's really the main place you can find me. On YouTube, you can find us as well. Instagram, places like that. But TikTok's the main place. So FF Strategist, Eric P. Football. Eric, fun as always. Yeah. I'm sorry about the results of today.
Yeah, I mean, but I'll go ahead. Even with that, that's why we play the game. Like the emotions that I felt throughout the whole season, winning, losing, even getting to this point, that's why we play. I mean, I lost in the championship game, but somebody's got to lose. It was giving me something to do. There's a lot going on in this world, but football was here for me, and I appreciate that. That's why we do this.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And I mean, real quick, last thing. It's New Year's Eve. Do you have a New Year's resolution relating to football, fantasy football, anything of the sort?
I want to get more involved in the application to how to better set these props and understanding the analysis of how the football games are going to go, the way we do that, and translating that more to the actual props they set out there, and helping people along those lines. I think that's gaining more traction. So taking this skill set and putting that there is something that I should work on. I'd like to go ahead and expand on that in 2024.
I feel you. One thing that I'm thinking about in 2024, and obviously it depends on a lot of factors, time being the biggest one, is a more consistent week-by-week process that is not just time-consuming for time-consuming's sake, but doing my research with like a clear plan, a clear output, but incredibly efficient, so that, I mean, I'm giving out the best knowledge, the best process that I possibly can, while also obviously still just having time for my family. That's kind of my base. Yeah.
Nirvana.
Yep, that's perfection. All right, so now we got our resolution out of the way. With that being said, Happy New Year's, guys. Happy New Year, Eric.
Yes, sir. And, Happy New Year, man.
Yeah, and again, you're going to catch us here next week, so we will catch us in 2024. But make sure you guys, enjoy the new year, but be safe if you're outside in these streets. Probably just stay home and watch on TV like most people are doing. But yeah, that being said, peace, guys.
Peace.